Welcome to the KUMB Mod Pod, a podcast, or should that be modcast, where the KUMB moderating team come together to sort the wheat from the chaff in the currently largely irrelevant world of football. This week, joining me on the show, which just happens to be episode 11 of the Mod Pod, are regulars Bristol Hammer, Rio, and the Pink Palermo. Some of our regular cast, such as DL and Gnome and Chalks, are taking the week off, and we'll see them again very soon. We shall kick off tonight's show, as is, of course, becoming customary now, with a look at, in the words of Preview Percy, the wild and wacky world of association football, in a section which we have decided to name A Week's A Long Time in Football, but temporarily renamed tonight, given our recent absence, to A Fortnight's an Even Longer Time in Football. So getting us off underway tonight, we are going to look at West Ham and the pre-season friendlies. It's all been happening since we've been away, gentlemen, isn't it? We've played Ipswich and Wickham all on the same day, which was rather unique and unusual. And since then, we've played Brentford. And we've won all three games with a goal difference of 11-4 and 3 against, I think, if I'm right. And we haven't kept a clean sheet, which I guess is something we're going to be coming back to later on in the show. West Ham have been so good, of course, that Reading cried off from last weekend's planned meeting, leaving the Hammers with only Bournemouth to play in pre-season. That's going to be taking place this Saturday as this year's Betway Cup before the 2020-21 season commences against Newcastle in about 11 days' time. So, gentlemen, I presume you've all seen the pre-season friendlies, those games I've just referred to. Briz, I'll start with you tonight. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you back.
Yeah, I'm all good, all rested. Been away for the weekend, so feeling good.
And where have you been this time? I mean,
been down to Devon again and down to Plymouth, so we've enjoyed the weekend away.
Beautiful. How's the weather?
Really good. A bit windy down at Plymouth, but there you go.
Well, I suppose you'd expect that down there, but I think it's been like that, hasn't it? Where it's almost as if summer's disappeared overnight and autumn has sort of dragged itself forward, kicking and screaming. But anyway, enough of that. This isn't the Weather Channel. We are discussing West Ham's pre-season friendlies. What did you make of it? Briz, Ipswich, Wickham and Brentford. Decent stuff so far? Have we learned anything?
Well, I think all of it was poor opposition, really. I think against Wickham, I watched the Wickham game mainly and caught up on the highlights on the others. So the Wickham game, we looked good going forward. Bowen, Fornals played well. I thought we linked well up front. Bowen looked absolutely torn to pieces. Couple of new centre-backs, which I didn't know anything about as it started. And just generally, we looked to link well and play well together. But it seemed quite obvious that the Wickham game was almost the first team and the Ipswich game was the for sale team. Because, again, you looked around the team against Ipswich and think to yourself, how many of these are going to be here at the start of the season if Moyes gets his way? So I didn't think much of the other game, to be honest. I thought it was quite a boring game and nothing much happened.
The game or the Ipswich one?
Sorry, the Brentford game. Yeah, I thought it was quite boring. I just thought it lacked a bit of spark from both sides, and I think it's that pre-season friendly, just kind of changing players around, getting fit. Did I learn anything new? Not really. Again, we were a little bit poor at the back in both games, a little bit disorganised, but going forward, we look generally good. So I suppose that bodes well, at least. Yeah,
there was a marked difference, wasn't there, between the first two games and the Brentford game. We seemed to coast those two games that took place at the same time, but struggled a bit more against Brentford, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. We just seemed to kind of lose our spark in the Brentford game, and I'm not sure whether it just changes again or whether it was just a bit quick after the other two games, but we just seemed to go a bit flat in that game, or whether Brentford were better opposition, because let's be fair, Wickham were awful and Ipswich were much better.
Yeah, I think Wickham had about 20 players on the show, didn't they, on the day? Given all the changes they made. But anyway, I mean, you can, as we always say, you can only beat what's in front of you. Rio, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you, buddy?
I'm okay. Thank you very much, mate.
Good. And have you been away anywhere since we've chatted last, in the last 10 days or so?
I've ventured down to the pub a few times. That's about as far as I've got.
And how was the weather at the pub?
Absolutely glorious. Absolutely
marvellous. Ipswich, Wickham and Brentford. 11 goals scored, hat-trick for Sebastian Haller, Ipswich, and 3 goals conceded. No clean sheets. Your thoughts on those 3 games as a whole, first of all?
Yeah, I think Briz has pretty much nailed it. Against Wycombe and Ipswich, we got quite fluid going forward. Some really good interplay. Diagana, or Diang, as he's now known.
Yeah.
Which rather confused everybody. Him and Haller really seemed to link up well. Bowen was awesome in the other game. Yeah, going forward, we look promising. There's still that air of calamity at the back, which is kind of rubbed off from the opposition as well, because a couple of the goals that I can't remember, was it the Wycombe game? There's some absolutely shocking defending. Brentford, obviously, they were a class above the other 2 sides, hence they're staying in the league the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So we found it a little bit hard. The biggest surprise of that one really wasn't the fact that Brentford are better. It's that they've developed a reputation over the last couple of years of being a really free-flowing attacking side. And I just saw shades of the 90s where they like to get their foot in, don't they? There was a few challenges going around that one, which I wasn't particularly happy with. But yeah, so you can only beat what's in front of you. You don't read too much into pre-season friendlies. I'm just worried that we've used up all our goals now for the next 3 months.
I think you made a very good point. There's something I wanted to speak about was the Brentford game, and you mentioned the challenges were a little bit rude at times. Perhaps the one on Antonio, I think might have been possibly a red card in a Premier League game. What do you think about that one?
Oh, most definitely. They clearly kind of targeted him, I think, and wanted to make their mark, and they did. I think on his thigh, his knee, his shin, everywhere. Yeah, well, it wasn't particularly pretty, and like I say, over the last couple of seasons, they've had this rightful reputation of playing the ball around and playing decent football.
Yeah.
I remember Brentford from the early 90s when we had a little spell in the what was the old second division League One as it was at the time. And the likes of Gary Blissett and all them lot were just absolute. It was like a mini Wimbledon, and there was little shows of that coming back the other day.
Yeah, there was a couple of tasty challenges going in. I think at one point, Moyes actually remonstrated with his opposite number to kind of inquire as to why they were being, quite so strong in the tackle at points. But of course, as we mentioned, Michail Antonio was limped out of the game, and we're hoping for the best ahead of the new season. Something else you mentioned there that I think was worth looking at. You mentioned the Diang and Haller link. Now, they linked really well for 2 of Haller's goals against Ipswich. Diang, of course, harried the Ipswich defender ahead of his 3rd goal. So technically, I suppose you could say he provided 3 assists. But something to look forward to, perhaps, for West Ham, do you think, when the season begins, those 2?
Well, he had a great season at Championship level. And he's playing similar opposition. You can't read too much into it, but the early signs are good. And if Moyes can integrate him properly into the side, into the squad, you never know. I mean, the boy's got some talent. It's whether he can adapt himself to a higher level. That's the only worry I have about him. All the attributes are there. It's just getting him focused and fully up to Premier League standard. And
good stuff. Finally, let's talk about the own goal. It was the Wycombe game, wasn't it? I mean, have you ever seen anything quite as unusual or bad as that at that level?
It was different. Let's put it that way. I think that's as far as I'll go to say to spare the poor Solly's blushes. But yeah, it was unusual. I couldn't like it for a while, but no.
It was bizarre, wasn't it? It was like, I think everybody, including the commentator, had turned away, expecting the goalie to kick the ball back. And, when we look back at the screen, the ball was in the back of the net. It was quite bizarre. But anyway, that's pre-season football for you. Mr. Palermo, how are you, sir? Good to see you back again.
Good evening. Yeah, and you. What can I tell you? Been nowhere, done nothing. Haven't watched a single minute of pre-season. What a farce.
You don't know what you've missed, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, the concern really, what is the manager going to learn about a squad that he's been managing for the last 6 months anyway, that he didn't already know, by playing Wycombe, Ipswich Town, the reality is they're games just to stretch the players' muscles, get them a little bit fitter, sharpen them up a bit. And I'd hate to think the players in their 3 weeks they had off had fallen completely out of shape anyway. So, as far as pre-seasons go, it's a weird one.
Yeah.
The main issue, of course, is the managers looking at the same problems we had last season, because we haven't done any business in the transfer market in the crucial areas. So for me, the big news really of the pre-season is that Winston Reid did 90 minutes for his team in the States a week or two back. So who knows, we could see a Lazarus-like recovery from Mr. Reid at some point. I wouldn't hold your breath, but we're so short of numbers in defence. We might just be grateful if we could say, "Come on back, Winston, all is forgiven." It really is threadbare, and you raised it at the top of the show there. When you're not keeping clean sheets against Wickham, Ipswich Town, and dare I say it, Brentford, and you can say, well, Brentford, they're better than the others and blah, blah, blah. Really? That's the standard now, is it? Don't expect to keep a clean sheet against a team that failed to get promoted to the top flight.
And let's, of course, not forget that they were missing, two of their three main strikers as well in the game.
Indeed. And so on that basis, you could almost say, well, forget the goals we're putting in, because I would expect the talent we've got in the attacking sense to be putting those sorts of teams to the sword.
Yeah.
But our inability to keep them out, which has been our undoing last season, what was it, 62 Premier League goals conceded? And here we go again into a new season, 10 days away, less than that?
Yep. And
we've strengthened nothing at the back. And for me, when we come on to the transfer section of this, I can only imagine all of us will have a list of defenders, that say, let's have all of them. And even if Messi was available on a free, which he isn't anymore apparently, and gave an interview with the Newham Recorder saying his lifelong dream was to play for West Ham, and he'd do it for £1 a week, he still wouldn't be my top priority. We need some bloody defenders. And,
yeah, we certainly do.
Otherwise it's another season of pain. So that's where I'm coming from.
One of the I don't want to steal anyone's thunder ahead of what we're going to talk about shortly, but Brentford, of course, had Rico Henry on show in the last of those three friendlies, and he was involved in the goal and made a difference. And you could see, what a bit of youthful exuberance, perhaps, and energy can bring to a team. Of course, West Ham currently stuck with the choice of Aaron Cresswell, who seems to be becoming weaker as the months and seasons pass, and of course our errant defender, Mr. Masuaku, who I don't think anyone is particularly comfortable with playing at full back. But we will, of course, come on to that in a minute. As you haven't seen the games, I can't really ask you about the players who were involved, but I shall put this one to Briz then in that case. You're the best player you've seen in pre-season so far, Briz. Anyone that sort of stood out for you?
For us, it was Bowen. Bowen, without a shadow of a doubt, was brilliant. I mean, he ripped Ipswich. I mean, it's Ipswich, but he ripped him apart. Player I felt most sorry for was it Coventry that came on and went up front for Antonio? And they got absolutely slated for playing up front when he's a defensive midfielder. I felt really sorry for the lads. I thought, but if that's our strength, and going back to Pinky's point, that's our strength in depth, that we get a striker going off with Antonio, and we've got to replace him. And a young kid who's played centre midfield all his life, he's in a bit of a state.
Yeah, it was a bit like that. I tend to agree with you actually about Bowen. I thought he was absolutely outstanding, what we saw of him. I'm really looking forward, and we haven't seen it yet in pre-season, but I'd really like to see Dean Garner on one side and Bowen on the other, supplying Haller, and just maybe we'll get the opportunity against AFCB this weekend. But Moyes hasn't done that yet, so really looking forward to seeing what they can do. Of course, we have a plethora of attacking options. That's one thing we're not short of. So I guess the dilemma for David Moyes is who to start with against Newcastle up front. But unfortunately, none of them can play at the back, as Pinky's rightfully pointed out. That's where we're so sorely lacking. But anyway, that's pre-season wrapped up. 3 games so far, 1 more to go against Bournemouth this weekend, and West Ham with a 100% record so far, which, as we all know, means absolutely nothing when it comes to the real games. Was it not? Was it 2011 when we had a 100% record in pre-season, I think? And of course, we were relegated under Mr. Grant, weren't we? So it just goes to show that it means absolutely nothing. Anyway, West Ham's squad has, of course, changed slightly since we last met for a mod pod. We spoke last time about Albion Ayeti being sold to Celtic. He's, of course, scored a couple of goals for them since, although his inclusion wasn't enough to prevent the boys from being dumped out of the Champions League about 4 days after this year's competition had actually ended. So he's not going to be playing in that much longer. But since then, we've let Jordan Hugill go, and our old friend Roberto, a KUMB double award winner not so long ago. It looks like we're kind of clearing the decks ahead of potentially bringing people in. Pinky, is that a wise choice? Or should we be leaving it so late, or should we have irons in the fire, so to speak, already in terms of incomings?
I mean, it's the old problem for us. Money. We don't have any, and it's the classic. I think Mr. Sullivan got a bit excited when Mr. Pellegrini was our manager, and went on a bit of a spending spree. The first season fine, kind of a mid-table, and then we go and sign Hilaire, Fornals, spent a lot of money in the summer last year.
Yep.
And I'm afraid we owe other clubs so much money for players that for the first time ever, I actually believe we have no money line from the club. I actually think they're telling the truth this time. And it gets worse in the sense of, well, who have we got we can sell? And the obvious candidate is the one that even Mr. Sullivan knows. If he sells him, that's it then. I mean, the number of supporters have come up to me in the last week and said, if we sell Rice, that's me done. And you sort of point out, yeah, I remember you saying that when Martin Peters went and things like that. I haven't missed a game since. But it's kind of like, we're getting to the stage of he's almost one of the very few homegrown players in the team. So he's kind of off limits, even though we all know he's the most obvious candidate. For me, if we're talking about clearing the decks, look at the defence, look at who was defending for us last year. Can we sell any of them? And the only really saleable asset is Issa Diop. And it's fine selling the likes of Hugill. That's great. 5 million quid. You know what? That's basically they're going to pay for the team bus for a year. We need to sell one of the so-called big names, and Diop, for my money, is the one that we need to shift out. A centre back that closes his eyes when he heads the ball. Give it 2 years, he'll be a top player. But West Ham haven't got 2 years.
Yeah. And
David Moyes doesn't have 2 years. So for me, it is very much sell before we buy. I'm pleased for Jordan Hugill. He's gone to a club where he'll be popular, he'll be a hit, and he'll probably score 15 goals for Norwich and fire them back into the Premier League, upon when they'll just sell him again to another Championship club. It is the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I get, that's absolutely right. What about our friend from Spain, who, of course, has gone back to Valladolid, hasn't he? On a 3-year contract he signed, so he'll be there till he's 37. Good deal.
Yeah, I mean, who's getting the money for all this? I mean, seriously, who's sanctioning these deals at club level? Whereby a goalkeeper who was so poor for us, whose confidence was shot to pieces, can get a club, in the top flight in Spain. no, to me, there's something a bit whiffy about it all. And he's gone there to be the backup keeper, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe even the training ground keeper. But that to me looks a little bit of almost a charity gig by Pellegrini on a player that he signed. It didn't work out. And he said, never mind, son, I still love you. And they're probably paying him 50p a week. What can you say? You know, it's a dreadful signing for us, and it'll be no better for them.
Yeah, one of those chapters I think everybody's eager to close in the annals of West Ham history.
Yeah.
Briz, two players have gone out, of course, as we just said there, since we last met. Jordan Hugill has gone to Norwich I think the initial fee is about 2.6 million, isn't it? With further monies to follow if he meets certain criteria, going up to about 5 million in total. Roberto had another year on his contract. We've effectively annulled his contract to allow him to return to Spain on that 3-year contract. I'm not sure if we're paying any of the wages to subsidise it, but do you agree with what Pinky's saying there? That, and we're talking about clearing the decks ahead of potentially bringing people in. I mean, we are going to talk about this in a while, but do you think we are likely to bring anyone in as well?
I think it's definitely going to be sell to buy if we do. I mean, from what I understand, the payments for Hugo and Yeti went straight to pay Haller for the instalment for Haller, from what I'm led to believe. So that money's gone effectively. And as far as I know, Moyes has been told he must sell to buy. I think the club's in real dire straits in terms of finances. I mean, I can't see anything happening until we shift players out. And given the season we've just had, it's not like we're in the kind of prime shopping area for people who want to buy good players. I think we've got the players that other teams will want to buy, we don't want to sell. So I think we're in a difficult situation. And, I've got my inkling about the players we will let go, and I'll kind of bring that up in the transfer bit that we're going to talk about in a bit. But we're kind of looking at the wrong players to sell in a way, because the players we're looking to sell aren't the ones on big wages, and I think that's what's crippling the club as much as anything.
Yeah,
is we've got players that are on. I mean, Wilshere for a start. What did you say about Jack Wilshere? The guy's earning £100,000 a week to basically get splinters in his backside.
Is he sellable though? Do you think, Bruce? Can we sell him? Will anyone take a punt?
I honestly God think that we'll see him go on loan, and I think he may go on loan to someone like Fulham.
Right.
With us subsidising some of his wages, A, to get him some playing time, and hopefully they'll take him off our hands.
Yeah.
But B, it's just about getting him out of the club, because I don't think he's doing anyone any favours sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, he's certainly didn't do an awful lot in the pre-season games we've seen, and I think we'd all be in agreement that we've probably seen the best of Jack Wilshere from probably 5 or 6 years ago, actually, when he was at Arsenal. Well, actually, I'm going to leave that because we're going to come back to it in the transfer section. I was going to ask you to kind of look at what Pinky was saying about, the saleable assets we've got. But let's come to that in a minute. Let's get this out of the way, and we'll do that in a while. Rio, yes, so 2 more players out, Hugill and Roberto. Was it just a case of getting them out at, any cost, do you think?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I know we've touched on this before, but you look at the 2 strikers we've just sold, Yeti and Hugill. Mm-hmm. We paid £17 million for them.
Yeah.
And we've recouped 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's shocking business over the last 2 years.
Yep.
And also, I know we brought in Haller, and he's obviously on a really good wedge. We didn't exactly bring in a lot of other players last summer. And we did ship a load of other kind of surplus to requirements on big wages, like Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
So that wage bill should really be dwindling at a rapid rate of knots. Sanchez was a big earner. Zabaleta was a big earner.
Arnautovic was on a fair whack.
Yeah, exactly. So it just makes you wonder, like, we're obviously in financial dire straits. And it goes back to the mismanagement by our esteemed financial experts, so-called. It's just a really weird situation. We've culled a lot of money off the wage bill.
Yeah.
And yet we're still at a stage for a Premier League club of our stature. We're shopping at not even at Lidl. We're shopping at Mr. Patel's corner shop rather than anywhere else because
I think we're actually rifling through the bins right now, aren't we? Out the back.
Yeah, it's like Freegan, isn't it? We're rifling for the back of Sainsbury's looking for an out-of-date salmon sandwich.
Yeah, it's not looking particularly good, is it? But anyway, I think we'd all be agreed that, you know, the players we've referred to there that have gone, Aieti, Hugill and Roberto, wouldn't have played a part anyway this season. So I guess if you're looking solely at that, it's good business, right, for West Ham. I think we'd all be agreed as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, Roberto had to go. Hugill just never looked the part. For all his like kind of work rate and desire, he's never going to be a Premier League striker.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit sorry for reasons we touched on before. He's come from European League. He's got a little bit of pedigree. He just was never given the opportunity because both managers didn't really fancy him. So yeah, it's just a strange situation and typical West Ham, isn't it? Really.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Moving swiftly on, we have seen a report, or lots of odds actually coming out this week, about who the bookies feel are likely to be relegated from the Premier League this season or this forthcoming season. I guess the way that we're kind of bemoaning West Ham's chances, that we'd expect West Ham to be one of those who are favourites for the drop. That's not the case. In fact, nobody has West Ham out of the major players as favourites for the drop, and they're pretty much all unanimously agreed that even with the current squad available to David Moyes, that the Hammers are destined for a mid-table finish of around 10th, 11th, 12th place. I guess there's a lot of people, given what happened last season, would take that. But just having a quick look through the odds, Bet365 have West Brom as favourites to finish bottom, followed by Fulham and Villa. West Ham as 10th favourites for the drop. William Hill, Fulham as their most likely team to finish bottom of the pile, followed by West Brom and Villa, and Newcastle as well, which is interesting given how they did last season. West Ham joint sixth favourites for the drop at 4-1. Betfair have Villa. Again, the same. It's the same teams all the way through this, actually. West Brom, Fulham and Villa are being considered by every bookie currently to be favourites for the drop. Betfair have us at 9-2 as 10th favourites for the drop. Betway have us at 5-1. And Paddy Power also have us at 5-1. Briz, why are we not as confident as the bookies are that West Ham are going to survive this year?
Well, they didn't watch us, did they? That's the problem. No, I mean, I'm going to chuck another name in there as well. I think Sheffield United this year could go down.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, unless we do some strengthening, I can seriously see us involved in another relegation scrap. I can't see how we're not going to be. We just don't have that quality at the back. And other teams are strengthening, and we're slipping further down. The more teams get by, bring players in, the more we slip down the pack. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a strange one. I think they're more optimistic than we are. I mean, that's just, there's never say a poor bookie, do you? So they must know something. But
that's what they say, isn't it? That's the old adage. Of course, you don't. But I'm just wondering if there's going to be quite a few poor ones this year, if that's what they. That's what they think.
I think that West Brom and I'm going to say Sheffield United will be two that I can see definitely going down. But I think we're going to be in the mix. I think with Brighton and Villa, I think we'll be right in there. So Newcastle would be my outside. They're worth a punt, I think. But I definitely think it's going to be the same kind of mix as it was last year.
Okay, good stuff. I guess, it's interesting to hear about, what's your view on Sheffield United quickly? Just, overconfidence or?
Well, I think teams will work them out. I think that it's always a first season. I remember Reading doing this, like absolutely shooting up the table, having a great first season, then dropping like a stone. And there's been a number of teams that have done that.
Yeah, Blackpool did it not so long ago, didn't they? They had a brilliant start, and I think they were relegated after being in the top 4 or 5 after about October, November.
Absolutely, and I think that tends to happen is that other teams work them out. They work out the systems. Yeah. They understand how they're going to play. They've watched the video on them. A little bit of an anomaly when they come up from the Championship. The players are all up for it because it's new. They're trying to make it, and then you get into the second season. Usually, new players are brought in, and that starts disrupting the team. And all of a sudden you find them just drop in and morale drops and it all goes to pieces. So I think they're going to be in it this season. That's going to be my outside bet. So maybe I'll look to put some money on them.
Good stuff. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. Just see See if there's something there. Rio, West Brom come up favourites for the drop. Fulham come up via the playoff final favourites for the drop. One name not featuring in any of these lists, though, is Leeds United. Do you think that's a bit of overconfidence on their part from the bookies, or do you think that with Bielsa in charge, there's little chance, if any, of them being involved in a relegation scrap?
No, I definitely think they're involved.
Okay.
And part of that is down to the way that Bielsa plays. I know they've brought in quite a few new players recently, haven't they?
Yeah.
But the way that he plays is high energy, high work rate, and they've not had a proper break this summer, have they? They're going to go from the Championship, probably 2 or 3 weeks off, straight into a Premier League campaign.
Yep.
And these players could get burned out by January, February, and not have an ounce of energy left. And that's my fear for them. I say fear. I mean, I'd be more than happy if they drop like a stone, to be honest. But I think outside the top 7 or 8 teams, anyone's game. Any one of them 12 remaining teams are in the mix. Palace are an ageing side with no real striker. They look pretty awful at times. Burnley have got their troubles. Newcastle aren't great. Villa aren't great. We're not great. Any 3 from those 12 who outside the top 8 are really in the mix and have really got to watch their backs. It's just a matter of who has the worst injuries, who can't get a run going, who can't find the back of the net on a regular basis. So I think we'll be all right because we have got goal scorers and goal scoring midfielders.
Okay. I guess that's the thing. If you can put the ball in the net, you've always got a chance. If I had to fix you down on 3 to choose now, who would you go for?
I'd probably go West Brom, Fulham and Palace.
Okay. Interestingly, Palace, of course, have spent a few quid this week, haven't they? We know the player they've bought quite well because it was someone that Mr. Moyes was apparently after.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one bright spark for them. But outside of him, and he's got to adapt to the Premier League, it's a step up for him. But outside of that, then that side is ageing. They're still relying on Ben Teke out front. I think he scored 3 goals in 3 years for a £20 million striker.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a good side. And where's the goals coming from? That's the worry they have. Where are the goals coming from?
Does Zaha stay there this year, or is he moving on?
I think he'll actually stay.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of his. He's more of a show pony than a proper Premier League player for me.
Yeah.
He might win him a few penalties, but he's on his last legs there. You know, what top side is going to take him in the current climate? I really can't see anyone of note going for him. So he's going to be moving sideways or slightly above. He'll be going to the likes of, say, a Villa rather than the Man United that he probably craves. Yeah,
there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of interest, does there, from the bigger clubs, which I kind of felt that might be a one-in, one-out situation at Palace, but it doesn't seem to have been the case anyway. Mr. Palermo, would you take a punt on West Ham at those odds this year, or do you think there's at least, it's the same old thing, isn't it, at least 3 teams worse than us that are destined to go?
Yeah, and I think there's considerably more than 3 teams worse than us, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
My 3 for the drop without a ball being kicked: West Brom, Fulham, Newcastle United. Yeah, and West Brom will be. It's a hard division to come into, and they've had a hard season to get here. I don't think they'll spend the money that you need to stay up. I think the fact that Dean Garner looks destined to be our club rather than theirs hurts them considerably. Yeah. I think Fulham, Scott Parker, nice man, probably always sends his mum a birthday card, that sort of thing. But again, the Fulham squad's going to be found wanting. And Newcastle, just the negativity that will be all over that football club.
Yeah.
From first minute to last. It'll drag him down again. I think Steve Bruce and his team punched way above their weight last year. And I think they'll be in it right in the mixer this time. Us, I think the bookies are calling it about right, kind of mid-table-ish. But you could be, anywhere between 10th and 15th on the back of maybe one or two games. It'll be fairly tight. There's not a lot to choose between some of those mid-table sides. I think Southampton will be comfortable this year. Everton, who have spent a huge amount of money, they really should be top half. So for us, if we can finish 10th, I'll take it. I'll take it at this point in time. Yeah.
Okay.
The obvious candidates to go. Yeah, I'd even go as far as I'd go to the bookies tomorrow and put money on West Brom and Fulham. They're two of the slots gone.
Unfortunately, you won't get particularly good odds were you to do so right now. But it certainly seems to be the general consensus, doesn't it, that those two are going to struggle. And then Briz says he thinks Sheffield United might go, possibly Villa. Rio's got Palace. Pinky says Newcastle. I've got a feeling Brighton are going to struggle this year. They were in dire straits, weren't they, until Project Restart began, and they seemed to find a spark from somewhere. And win a few games, but I've got a feeling that they might find it difficult to sustain this year. But you never know. We shall see. But I think you're all right. I think you're all absolutely right. It can be any three from 12 or 13 clubs. Now there is such a divide between those clubs at the top and the rest of the Premier League that, as you say, Rio said, a run of bad injuries. A few bad games, a bad goalkeeper such as Roberto that can cost you a few points and leave you in trouble. It really could be anyone down there. So at least I suppose there's something to play for this year, even if it might not necessarily mean trophies and the right things, but it should be a fairly wide open Premier League anyway. Moving swiftly on to our last point from a week is a long time in football. West Ham United have released their new third kit. It's all black. And as some people have said, it's quite funereal and probably quite apt given the current circumstances at the club. Breeze, have you seen the new kit? And if so, are you a fan? Do you like that?
I was going to actually, for the first time in 5 years, I was going to buy a new kit. And I thought to myself, go and look on the website. And I'm not a fan of the home kit, not a fan of the away kit. Looked at the third kit and thought, geez. Well, traditional colours, black and gold. We've all seen us in that as many times. And I thought, I'm looking around thinking, where's the white shirt gone? The one that I actually liked, and it's not there. So, I had a look. I just think it's awful. We've been sponsored by Mars Bar or something next year. I don't know. Just a really, really poor looking kit. And I don't see how it fits with West Ham. What's all that about? Black and gold.
Yeah, it's very, very strange, isn't it? But then again, I suppose black kits are a relatively new commodity, aren't they? Having only been, given the green light in recent years. Pinky, you don't strike me as the sort of chap who goes and spends a fortune on replica kits when he's travelling to Stratford. Is there anything there that takes your eye and your particular views on the third kit?
It's just another way to milk the supporters. We don't need three kits. Seriously, I think with proper planning of the fixtures, we don't need two kits. Let's be honest about it. And I don't like the constant milking of the supporters. The new away kit, I think, was marked down 20% within a week of it going on sale.
So that upset a lot of people, didn't it?
Yeah, and rightly so, because the pressure on parents to get kits for kids and all the rest of it, and then to see it discounted, why not put a sign up saying thank you to all those mug punters that paid top dollar, and now the canny folk who have turned up a week later can save themselves 10 quid. How about if you buy the kit early, you guarantee it's the cheapest price you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
And as the season progresses, they put the price up.
Yeah.
And just, call it a little bit of positive marketing or something like that, so that people know that they're not going to get mugged. But the third kit, black shirt, nah. do me a favour. And certainly they don't make them in my size. I mean, black's supposed to be a slimming colour. Let me tell you something, yeah? I don't care, you know, how black it is. It ain't making me look any slimmer. That much I guarantee.
Excellent stuff. So no black kits going over to Brentwood this weekend then, it sounds like. Rio, 3 kits from Umbro. I don't know, is that our final year of Umbro, or are we going to be, I'm not sure how long
I think they
arrangement stands
on
for.
an extended deal, didn't they, for another couple of years after this?
Is that right? I'll have to check.
I think they did, yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, you a fan of the black kit? If you find it slimming as Pinky says it should be?
I don't know about slimming, but as a colour, it goes well with a pair of jeans, and that's the biggest selling point.
Is that what it's all about then, do you think?
I think so. It's more of a leisure thing, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
We're going to wear it once all season, twice possibly. It's okay. It's not great. I've got a problem with the neck. I'm going to take the sartorial stance of the first time in my life. The cut of the neck is abysmal. It's very square, you know.
Yeah.
It's like almost Ray Wilkins-esque. It's that square, you know. It looks pretty bad. To be fair to Umbro, the last few years they've knocked up some really decent kits for us. I mean, I think the last one, the Bowling, was brilliant.
Yep.
Last year's White Away one was brilliant.
Yep.
This year they've not hit the mark, and it's kind of cyclical, I think, because they did this before we went to Macron. They released a really good first kit the first 2 seasons.
Yep.
Then they come up with the one that Ray Winston had, like the checkerboard thing, very little claret. It's as if, like, after a 3-year period, they run out of ideas and they get the work experience kit thrown in and say, knock something up with a crayon, right? And yeah, no, they've let themselves down this year.
Yeah, see, I'm going to go against the grain a little bit here, because I mean, I kind of think that as far as a West Ham shirt is concerned, you can't really go too far wrong. Claret body, blue arms. It's simple. It's dead easy. If you stick to that formula, I think that's fine. I've never been a fan of the all claret shirt going back to whenever it was, the mid 80s when we first did that. The argument I always tend to use is this: would Arsenal wear an all red shirt? And it just wouldn't happen, would it? Or they might have done 100 years ago, but they certainly wouldn't do it in the modern era. And I feel that should apply to West Ham as well. So I think and one of the things I've seen used as criticism in the last few weeks about the home kit is that it's very, very similar to the 2015-16 kit, which you pointed out there was one of your favourites. And I tend to agree. But as I say, as far as I'm concerned, I think as long as you stick to that formula, you can't really go far wrong. And it's been one of the things in recent years where, a lot of people have tried to, we've had all claret shirts, and I'm not a fan personally. So I'm quite happy with that. The black kit, I actually quite like it. My problem with it, I mean, I agree with what Pinky says. You don't need 3 kits. It's very rare. There is, after all, only 2 other teams in the Premier League that wear our colours, and that's really pretty much the only time you should need to change. But I don't mind the 3rd kit. I think it's quite aesthetically pleasing, as you say. It's it's a fashion item, isn't it? It's not for wearing over the park on a Sunday. But my issue with it is this: if you look at the club shop, there is a training top available which is all black and has a Betway logo on the front and a club crest. Now, the Betway logo is in white instead of gold, and the material is slightly different. Yet the training top costs £35 and the replica 3rd kit costs £55, and it's almost identical. And I think I pointed this out on KUMB a week or so ago. And it just seems to me that, the fans have been striked, as Pinky, again, rightfully pointed out yet again, for something that's totally unnecessary. But, anyway, we could go on. This is obviously not...
Worse still,
Pinky, go on.
Worse still, put it in context, the club gets £4 million a year from Umbro.
Yep.
Okay. So that's why we have the 3 kits and all the rest of it. It's 3 chances for Umbro to produce shirts and for supporters to buy them. So 2 years of our kit deal with Umbro pays for what we've lost on a Jetty and Hugel. And just put it in context. And if we were better in the transfer market, if we were better at running what a football club is supposed to be about, all this peripheral nonsense about we need to sell, more shirts, more cups of coffee in the club coffee shop and all this, it becomes a complete irrelevance. The only reason we're doing that is to actually plug the gaps of, because we're crap at doing what we're supposed to be doing as the core activity of the club.
Yep.
Shocking.
Yeah. Well said. So we'll wait to see how the replica kit sales go this year anyway. But it hasn't been overwhelmingly positive. But I guess we're a hard bunch to please, really. What I was just going to say there is that isn't something that's unique to West Ham. The 3 kits, is it? It seems to be quite a common thing. These are long gone. Anyway, are the days of when we were all kids, and the replica kits would last for 3 or 4 years. I think my first kit would have been the one the one that was replicated last year, the V shirt, which we had for a few seasons, didn't we? And then, of course, it was the Adidas kit, which lasted from 80 to 83, I think, if I remember rightly. And it's sort of all gone a bit south from them. But anyway, replica kits, the panel not particularly a fan of the new black away kit, which we shall see how many, of course, they sell in due course. I'm going to move swiftly on now. That is a week's a long time in football, and it has been quite a long time because we've been going at it for about 45 minutes so far, and we're keen to bring the length of the show down, so we're going to move away from that. We are going to talk now something we've touched on already, the transfer window. We know West Ham United and David Moyes does not have a bottomless pit of cash from which to plunder. In fact, he's probably got he hasn't got a pot to piss in, quite frankly, I think would be fair, given what we've learned in the last few days and weeks anyway. But we're going to kind of forget that for now, and we're going to ask the panel if they had the opportunity to boost the squad and improve certain areas, what areas they would improve, and with whom. This particular section was an idea of Brizz's. So, Brizz, I'm going to start with you on this one because you've probably thought a little bit more about this than the rest of us. So, over to you, sir. What gaps would you be looking to plug here, and with whom?
Well, again, first thing is absolutely left back.
Okay.
I think Cresswell's shot. Masuaki doesn't know where he is half the time.
Yeah.
So for me, a player I like, and I think he's got 1 year left on his contract. So again, fitting in with that kind of ethos of not spending too much money.
Yeah.
There's a guy who sounds like pasta, but it's Nick Tagliafico. Plays for Ajax. He's a left back. He's currently valued around about 15 million. But he's an Argentine left back. He plays really, really hard at the back. Good ball winner, takes it out. And I think he would be a good signing for us, especially given, like I said, he's got a year left on his contract. Hard man. Strengthen goalkeeper. I think we've got no plan beyond Fabianski. I appreciate we've got Randolph and Martin there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Randolph go to Burnley. They've lost the heart, and I think they're looking for a good keeper to come in. He's going to get bored of sitting on the bench behind Fabianski, and I think we need a plan for Fabianski leaving. So, player I like is a guy called Moynihan, who plays for Lille. And again, he's around about, whether I'm pronouncing it right, who knows. But he's around about £13 million. Again, another year left on his contract, really solid goalkeeper.
How old is he, Briz? Sorry? How old is he?
27.
Okay.
And, although I say he's backup playing, he's still got a bit of experience. He's played quite a lot of games in France, and a big lad, commands the box well. But I think he'd do well for us. Carrying on the defensive theme of centre-back, guy I like who's played, he was on loan from Spurs at Luton. There's a guy called Cameron Carter-Vickers. I know Luton were dire last year and ended up at the bottom of the division, but he was outstanding. He won most of his battles. You could tell he was a Premiership player at a lower league club. Available for $2 million, I reckon. So, again, a good punt. Somebody young to have to bring up behind Diop, Ogbonna and Balbuena, who doesn't look like removing any of those on at the moment. So, again, just having that platinum link in someone younger up there.
Okay.
Centre midfield, I'd be looking at Calvin Phillips from Leeds. I think he's a good ball winner, someone that could help out if we get the inevitable injury to Noble. And again, it's tossing up things like, do we lose Rice? Is he going to be sold? Are we going to sell Haller? So it's again looking at those kind of alternatives.
Yeah.
And then as well is Mitrovic from Fulham. I like him. I think he would hold the ball well. Doesn't score many goals, but he's a good player at bullying defenders up front. I think with Haller as well, that would be a good link-up. It's almost like for like there. I'd rather see Antonio playing as a winger than a forward, so that's my kind of thinking behind that. And I think Mitrovic is around 18 to 20 million. So whether or not we get that, I don't know. My surprise for going out, I think you may see Snodgrass go. And I think he may go to Villa. Got a funny feeling. But again, it wouldn't be a lot, probably 6 to 8 million. But
well, of course, he was hugely popular there, wasn't he, during the
exactly.
season on loan in the Championship?
Yeah, and they've got some money now, so wouldn't surprise me if they're looking for a bit of experience. Looks like they may have a bit more money from Grealish as well. Rumours again with him going, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Snodgrass go out. It'd be my outgoing that I think people will catch people by surprise.
Snodgrass is 33 next week. So it would certainly be time for him to go, I guess. We touched on this earlier, but if you had to sell someone in order to fund arrivals, I guess there's only a handful, right, of players that realistically you could sell. Pinky touched on Diop earlier. We all know Declan Rice is sought after by many clubs. But the cost to West Ham would be immense if that were the case. But who? Fornals, perhaps another one. Anderson, Haller. Who would you be looking at to offload if we had to?
Lanzini. I'd let Lanzini go. Okay. I think he's shot now. I think since the injury, he's not been the player he has. I think the Premiership is a bit too much for him. A bit too physical. You're looking at probably 18 to 20 million for Lanzini. I'd let Anderson go. I don't think he's been bothered the last couple of seasons. Again, if you can pick 25, 30 million up for Anderson, Italy likely to be his usual destination. I mean, he's been seen over there and tightening himself about. So it would be the two players I would keep for now. I think he's been brilliant. I think he's grown into the game. I think he fits well with the West Ham squad. His defensive work is outstanding. Left back's been great. It's not his best position. And he's a great link player. He's got loads of assists. I think he had one of the highest assist levels in Spain before.
I think he was second to Messi, wasn't he, in his final season? And of course, this year he's finished I think he had 5 this year, and it's joint top for West Ham with Snodgrass, funny enough.
Yeah, and I can see him sitting between Bowen and Diagana, or whatever he's calling himself now, in the middle and actually playing that role behind the forward. And I think he's one of the players we need to keep hold of. He's the kind of young player, is up and coming. Is going to be worth 2 or 3 times the amount we paid for him.
What about Diop? Would you consider still there?
I'd keep him, but because I don't think there's any suitors for him. Rather than sell him on the cheap, I'd keep him. I think he can develop. Can we afford to keep him? Who knows? But if we can get rid of some of the others, maybe. I think it's pretty much paper talk him going elsewhere or his agent. I think he'll stay with us. Would he be my first choice? Probably not. I think Ogbonna always is going to be number 1. I'd like to see Balbuena playing with Ogbonna. I think he's much more solid. I think Diop panics too often.
It's an interesting one, that, because Balbuena is often cited as the weakest link in that central defensive unit, but you feel that he's probably a good one to hang on to. Bearing in mind, he only cost the club 4 million when we signed him a year or 2 back. Yeah,
definitely. I think for me, whenever I watched him play, he's got a composure about him. He doesn't always make the right decisions, but he's got a composure, and I think he's suffered a bit from that time when we were constantly chopping the back 4 around. And I think in the season where we saw him settled in about, he was at the back with Ogbonna, he played really, really well. And I'd like to see him given another chance to cement that. And then bring Diop on. So play Diop for a few cup games, bring him in, move him around a little bit. I think he can be a good player. I just don't think I think he's a confidence player. I think he suffers a bit when we've got a goal down and we're struggling. And I think his head goes down a little bit. So, I'd keep him, but I'd like to see Balbuena Ogbonna's first choice.
Okay, good stuff. Of course, we are a bit short, aren't we, in central defence with Winston going to America. We have really only got 3 sort of first-choice defenders in there now, unless, of course, you include Declan Rice, which I don't think any of us would want to see him shifted back there. But Pinky, thank you, Brice. Some comprehensive roundup, some really interesting suggestions there. Pinky, we did sort of touch briefly, as I said a few moments ago, on Diop, and you feel he's going to be a real star in a couple of years' time. Whether or not West Ham can afford to wait is the issue there. Looking at those players that Briz has sort of talked about, and we've mentioned who we could perhaps shift. Who would you consider getting rid of, and what sort of names are you looking at as potential replacements as for the coming season?
Well, in terms of who I'd shift out, first and foremost, you look for the players that you could get some kind of a fee for.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to raise some money,
mm-hmm.
and B, then who's actually contributed, almost nothing in the last year or two. And Lanzini is desperately sad. 4 years ago, we were all looking at him thinking, what a great little player we've got in our hands. And, everyone liked watching him play. Last 3 seasons, he's had a dreadful injury.
Yep.
He's not come back from it. So if we could get anything like a fee for him, he's one that I would say, thanks very much and good luck with the rest of your career.
Okay.
Snodgrass, you've touched on already. It's an age-related thing.
Yep.
I like Robert. I think he's been a good, hard-working member of the team.
Mm-hmm.
But again, at 33, if you can get a fee, you take it. Looking through the rest of them there, Anderson, who, again, Briz touched on. Sometimes, when you look at a player, it's remove the price tag. Remove the price tag, because that always causes a jaundice sort of opinion of a player.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm afraid in Anderson's case, you almost can't. You're thinking we paid big money for him. We paid match-winning performance money for him.
Yep.
We paid, what I call gate money for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing it. He hasn't done it for a season, basically. He rarely gets into the opposition box, rarely, throws off a shot. So again, he's another one. If we could get any sort of a fee for Anderson, out the door with him as well, because it's just not working out. And I think we've got, the front side of the team sufficiently well covered. Beyond that, I really am struggling for who's going to generate a fee. And therein lies our problem. So for me, Diop is the one that I would shift for a good profit. I think we'd probably get 40 million for him, maybe a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2 years' time, everyone would be reminding me that he was the player I wanted to sell. Just to be clear, I'd sell him out of economic necessity.
Yeah.
Because we haven't got the 2 years. The club was on the right track. By a young, high potential centre back who you can hang on to and then sell for really big money or build a team around. Unfortunately, yet again, because of deficiencies elsewhere in the team, we'll end up selling good potential players just to paper over the cracks. In terms of who I bring in, I'm only looking to fill 2 positions because, I think we've got to be realistic. We have spent so much in 1 or 2 areas of the pitch, that now it's a case of, for this season, do any of us think we're going to have a cup run? No. So this is about a 38-game season, and for me, I want a left back, and at left back I'm going for Christian Gunter from Freiburg. He's a competent, experienced Bundesliga player, and I think, and I hate myself for saying this, but there's more value there than there is taking a punt on, say, Rico Henry from Brentford.
Yeah.
So, you buy a championship fullback, you're going to be striped up on the fee.
Yep.
And you've still got a huge gamble. And we've seen that with Fredericks. When I think Stuart Pearce was away from the club, and he said they looked at Fredericks when he and Moyes were here before. They looked at Fredericks, and everyone looked at him. And so when we signed them after Moyes and Pearce had gone, but here we are. He's a player at right back, which I think most of us now would say, no, we'll give Johnson that gig this season, and Fredericks is the backup. So
is that an indication of how weak Fredericks has been, Pinky? Because Johnson, of course, he's been on the cusp for 2 or 3 seasons, but he has, of course, only played 2 or 3 first-team games. But here we are with this, seeing a clamour for him to be used as our, as our first choice right back now.
Yeah, I'm a bit old-fashioned, and I know the role of the fullbacks changed. Effectively they're wingers these days.
Yeah.
But I like fullbacks that can defend a bit. Which is why for me, on the other side, Masuaku, in the opposition's half of the pitch, he can look quite dangerous.
Yeah.
The problem is he looks dangerous in our half of the pitch. Yeah. You know, and that's the problem. And I think there's an element of that about Fredericks as well on the other side.
Yeah.
So for my money, I want competent fullbacks that can defend, get the basics right, because we've got enough attacking threat elsewhere in the team.
Yes.
And for me, the number one priority this year, stop the goals going in. If we could concede 15 fewer goals in the course of a season, we would rise up 8 or 9 places in the league table.
Mm-hmm.
And so for my money, left back and a centre back. And again, I'm going German, and it's Ginter from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Again, another competent German international, experienced defender, knows the job. And these aren't expensive punts. These are reasonably priced players. And you get a couple of German lads in that might settle, and just bring 2 new faces in. That's all I'm looking to do. And the rest of the team, particularly in the front half of the pitch, pretty much looks after itself. And we can move out the likes of, say, Anderson, get whatever money we can. And again, just have this as a bit of a boring mid-table season.
Yeah.
You know, very few of us will be there to watch it anyway.
Yes.
This is not the season to be saying, let's go and do a Chelsea and buy every single player that might be available from any club for a huge fee. You know, I mean, Frank Lampard, you know, I don't know what dirt he's got on the Russian, but it must be big. I mean, you know, who isn't he signing? You know, I mean, I expect to see Bristol disappear from this podcast any second now because Lampard's on the phone. You know,
I wouldn't go to him at all. Don't like mate.
Yeah, but you know, for me, just two in and shift out whoever we could get a shot of. Certainly the underperformers, Lanzini, Anderson, and regrettably Diop. But we're going to need the money from Diop.
So a season of consolidation for Pinky, and I like the fact that your 2 choices, Gunter and Ginter, would be an absolute nightmare for the commentators, I would imagine. But again, this is good stuff. This is all good stuff. Some very interesting names being thrown into the hat here. Thank you, Pinky. Rio, coming to you finally in this particular section. Lanzini has been a common theme. Anderson, another one who the team feel we could probably do without. Left back and centre back, both of the guys there have mentioned those as necessary positions for reinforcement. What's your view on that, buddy? Do you agree, or do you think we need to do something somewhere else as well?
I think we definitely need fullbacks, but I think we need one on each side.
Okay.
I kind of like Fredericks, but he does rely on his pace too much. And as has been mentioned, he isn't the greatest defender, and he's on a lot of money for someone who is still a championship player for me.
Yeah.
Aaron, we've had a lot of good value over the years. He come in kind of, was he 25, 26 when he joined us? We made him an England international. Sadly, the injury took its toll. He can still do a job as a backup, but he's definitely on the wane. And I don't trust Arthur. The centre-backs, I like all of them individually. Collectively, I wouldn't get rid of any of them. I think under Moyes and Pearce, if we could get them two to drum into their heads the art of staying together, not letting people in behind, actually attacking the ball in the right areas, then we might get good value out of them this year. I do think Anderson and Lanzini are the most expendable in the whole squad. And they'll be the ones I look to shift on.
Just quickly there, Rio, I haven't put this question to anyone else, so I'm going to throw it over to you. What do you think's gone wrong with Anderson this year? Because the first season, he had a solid season, did really well, but last year just completely faded. I mean, what in your view has happened there, and can it be resurrected or corrected, should I say?
My fear is either, I thought he had a really good first season, as you say. I don't know if he got his head turned from interest possibly elsewhere, whether he's found it hard to settle for a longer period of time in Britain and he's got personal issues. that's really tricky one to call because he went completely off the cliff. I'll say the first year he floated around the pitch like Alan Devonshire.
Yeah.
Last year he floated around like an unflushed turd, basically. So it's a really
hard
Neil
one Ruddock, but I guess there's not much difference.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's just a hard one to call. It's so weird for a player that talent. Look, such a ghostly shadow of himself. You know, it's really sad to see. But he is a sellable asset, and if the attitude is going to remain from last season, we have to get rid, unfortunately. I mean, I think we need strengthening up front, but I don't think we can afford anybody.
Okay.
Anybody at all, basically.
So persist with Antonio as a striker.
Yeah, yeah. I think we need a backup goalkeeper because I don't trust Flappy Daz. So yeah, the fullbacks. I mean, I've got a couple that I've identified. Right back.
Okay.
We obviously can't afford the likes of Matty Cash and Jayden Bogle because they're going to cost an arm and a leg.
Mm-hmm.
So there was rumours about Vladimir Kufal from Souček's whole side, Slavia Prague.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of that. I think it was available for about £2 to £4 million, which in this day and age is pretty much a bargain.
Yeah, that's one area, isn't it, where there are bargains still to be had, really, in Eastern Europe. Yeah,
definitely. Mm-hmm. There's also there's a lad at Crewe, Perry. I don't know how to pronounce the surname. It's NG, Perry Ngay, or whatever his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's highly rated at Crewe, and surely we can pick him up for peanuts. And it ain't gonna be much of a punt, is it? If we spend $1 million on him, we've spent £2 million on reserve strikers in the past. So them two I look at right back, left back. Again, there was rumours of 2 Ukrainian guys, but I think the prices are way beyond our budget. There's one about Myalenko from Kiev, who I really like.
Yep.
I can't see it happening. And there was Matvienko with Shakhtar. I worried that we send Sullivan out there to close the deal up and he gets Matvienko. But
I was going to say, wasn't they a band in the 80s? Didn't they do a song? Get out of your lazy bed? Wasn't that Matvienko?
Yeah, we definitely haven't ended up on one.
Sorry, go on.
And the only other one I could really think of was the guy from Birmingham, Christian Pedersen, Danish under-21 international, looks pretty solid. And Birmingham have got financial woes as well, so might be able to kind of cherry pick them. So yeah, they're the two areas I look to kind of consolidate and really strengthen.
Okay. Good stuff. So I think we're all in agreement then that it's a common theme, I think, across the Knees Up Mother Brown forum and elsewhere on social media that the fullbacks really are an issue. Central defence, of course, is somewhere that David Moyes has intimated that he needs to address before the season begins. And we all know that we're weak in what we would call traditional strikers' berth, I suppose. We're full of forwards and wingers at the moment. But that seems to be an area where we're... And also, it's interesting that two of you have pointed out there about the goalkeeper situation. We have a plethora of goalkeepers, don't we, at the club? As well as Fabianski, we've got Dave Martin, Randolph. We did have Roberto until a few years ago. We've got Anang in the from the youth team, and Nathan Trott as well. So it's one area, but there doesn't seem to be kind of much quality there, does there? Really? I mean, we know Dave Martin is going to be quite happy just picking up his paycheck every week and being involved and stepping into the breach, perhaps for the odd League Cup game, whenever required. I share Rio's concerns about Randolph. I've never rated him since the day I saw him play his first game for West Ham. Actually, it was a pre-season friendly at Southend. It was the day Dimitri Payet made his debut as well. We won 3-2. Payet scored a worldie from 25 yards, a free kick, and Randolph dropped 2 in his own net. So I've never been a big fan really since then, and I think we can all pretty much work out why he came back to the club. I don't think it was because of his necessary quality. It was more to do with the fact that Borough probably owed us a few bob. But so that's an interesting one. But some really, really good choices there. Do let us know what you think out there. on the KUMB forum. The transfer thread, of course, has been running for a couple of months. It's our busiest thread on the forum. It always is at this time of year. Do go on there and let us know what you think of the team suggestions. Let us know if there's anybody else that you think is within our reach and who we should be looking at. Perhaps you've spotted a player, watching TV or those obscure satellite channels over the last few weeks and you've seen somebody that could do a job for West Ham. Let us know on the KUMB forum transfer thread. Anyway, going to touch on a couple of things before we end tonight. There is, as we know, the Premier League have said that not all of next season's fixtures are going to be broadcast live. And this has been a major concern for supporters and also supporter representatives. Apparently, of the 380 Premier League matches next season, 160 will not be broadcast. Now, that's probably not a problem if you're a fan of a club like Manchester United or Liverpool, but for fans of perhaps Newcastle or Brighton or West Brom or even West Ham, to a degree, that's going to be troublesome because you're not going to be able to see as many games on TV this season. Michael Brunskill of the Football Supporters Association is launching a campaign tomorrow in which he is asking fans to lobby the Premier League and ask why that's the case and if they can perhaps provide more live matches. Pinky, what's your view on this? Do you think, given the situation, that there is a kind of necessity for the Premier League to show more games? Do we deserve better than what we're getting? Or, I guess it's just a case of finances dictating the situation again, isn't it?
It's all about the money and, TV contracts. I think a number of us would take the view that in years to come, it'll go the way of NFL, where you can buy a pass and you'll be able to watch certainly every game of your own club, and possibly others as well.
Yep.
And what you've got is a situation where the TV companies have clawed back some money from last season, basically because the season didn't finish on time. Mm-hmm. And I suspect the clubs would dearly love to get that money back from the TV companies by saying, well, do you know what? If you want to show more games, you're more than welcome, but it's going to cost you. And I just wonder if the TV companies are going, no, we've got to be a bit careful here, because in a COVID world, we can see all sorts of subscriptions getting cancelled and so forth. And they might not want to take the risk of handing more money to the Premier League. Mm-hmm. Balanced against that, you've got the competition between the different leagues, the Premier League versus La Liga and so forth, and about which is the league that dominates overseas viewers' interests. And the Premier League certainly won't want to allow La Liga to become more popular in overseas markets. So there's those sorts of interests. But for me, I suspect this will just be a case of not every game's going to be on. Suck it up, lads. It's the way it's going to be. And I think you've got to admire the TV companies for not showing Newcastle United. I think that shows good judgment on their part, and if they could actually ensure that there are no Crystal Palace games, that would make me doubly happy, because they're a waste of airtime as well. So, is football on TV a human right? No, it's not. And straightforwardly, this is about money, and I think we'll just have to get used to the fact that maybe listening to the wireless. There you go. There's an option. Tune in, and you'll have some commentator describing the action, and you'll just have to do it that way. And why not? Why not
indeed? And of course, people, assuming we can find a feed from a foreign stream somewhere, we can continue to provide the Eyes Up Mother Brown broadcasts, and people are welcome to join those again next season. But yeah, it certainly is all changing, isn't it? Rio, do you feel that the Premier League, owe us anything as supporters, or is it just a question, as Pinky says there, that it's time for us to, just suck it and swallow? That sounds terrible, doesn't it? That's not quite what I meant at all.
Yeah,
It's a
we
family
get what
show.
you mean. We get what you mean.
But you get the picture anyway.
Yeah,
Shut up now.
It's undoubtedly a money-driven thing. I just feel that while supporters aren't allowed in grounds, there should be a bit more kind of leniency to supply the product we're all crying out for.
Yeah.
That the end of last season, when every game was shown, it worked well. We didn't miss a game. We could promote the product that earns you the millions in the first place. And when fans are allowed back in stadiums, then pull the plug and go back to the old ways. But I just think they're going to be cutting off their own nose to spite their face to some degree.
Yes. As I said, 160 games not going to be shown next season out of the 380 games. Of course, we know that attendances are going to be vastly reduced as a result of the current pandemic. So what this means, Brice, surely, is that more people are going to be looking for illegal streams, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, that's the obvious conclusion, isn't it? I think football's at a real tipping point at the moment. It's got to be careful in balancing, keeping supporters on side, keeping supporters interested, and making themselves some money. And I think they're going to have to watch what they do here, because I think if they start cutting off access to football grounds 100% by whatever means possible, people will stop going. It could lead even to the breakup of the Premier League. I mean, I could see in the future us having a European Football League, the Premier League becoming almost like a Scottish Premiership and the kind of championship underneath it. I just think it's a very dangerous game to be playing by both clubs. I think at a time where people are looking for a bit of goodwill and a bit of good behaviour from a place that's taken our money, let's be fair, or not my money, but it's taken the money of season ticket holders, not fulfilled it, is asking people to put their faith in them by buying season tickets for next year. Wouldn't it have been a nice thing to do is to say, in the meantime, we're just going to run the games, even if they change that when supporters are allowed back in the stadium.
Yep.
For the time being, to open the season by saying we're going to put the games on TV. If at such point we have allowed people back through the door, then we're going to cut down the coverage of it because it's affecting our revenue from supporters walking back through. But yet again, it's the supporter that suffers in any argument, isn't it? I wouldn't go to your links, Graham, of actually getting them to put things back on TV, which involves kind of something like a babe station. But I think we definitely need to have some representation there about making something a bit fairer for supporters to have access.
Yeah, apparently the only countries in the world which those broadcast rules will apply to, in addition to the UK, are Saudi Arabia and North Korea, which is just kind of says it all, I guess, doesn't it? It's ludicrous. The email that Michael Brunskill from the FSA has been sending out today states the following. He's asking people to lobby their club directly today and or tomorrow to oppose the Premier League's decision. Every club has a vote and can make a difference. Don't let your club blame the Premier League. Your club is 1/20th of the Premier League. Use the best contacts you have at your club to influence and make your feelings known. There is a social media campaign being launched tomorrow. That is Wednesday by the Football Supporters Association. So keep an eye out for that if you want to get involved.
Can I just chip something in?
Yes, buddy. Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah, in Australia for the Test matches,
Yeah.
what they have is in the city, which is basically the state where the Test match is being held.
Yeah.
They won't televise the game until all the tickets have been sold to the game.
Okay.
So if the game's on in Melbourne, if the tickets aren't sold, they'll show the game on telly in Sydney, but they won't show it in Melbourne. And I just wonder that really this is a case of, if the supporters really want to see it that much, I could see where the clubs are saying, well, how many of you actually bought tickets? How many of you actually put money into the club? And it's one of these classics whereby the supporters are saying, why should we give money for something that we don't think we've got any chance of realistically seeing?
Yep.
And it's whether or not that the halfway house is that you get one of these passes where you can actually say, provided you've bought your season ticket, then you will get a pass that allows you to watch the game on telly. and maybe if the Premier League and the clubs viewed it more positively, and whether within that it's whether you've paid the 30% deposit as we're doing, or some other mechanism. But I think the clubs will be really, really wary of giving away, which is how they'll see it, something for nothing. Because at the end of the day, once they've done it once, it becomes harder to say no the next time, which is where this clamour is coming from. You know, they did it as a gesture of goodwill at the end of last season, and now everyone says, well, why can't it continue? And the answer is, it's money.
Yeah.
Just money.
I guess it's inevitable in some way that this is going to be the eventuality that, you know, we've seen it here. I mean, a friend of mine is an Ipswich supporter. He can purchase any one of his of their games for £10. I think Scotland in the Premier League, they do something similar. I think it's a little bit more. I think it's nearer £20. But I guess this is inevitable, right? This is going to happen one day. It's just a question of when and getting the timing right.
Yeah, and you know, so if you're David Sullivan and you're turning up, or Karen's turning up at the meeting, what's going through your mind? At the minute, you're saying you're in a system whereby there's some merit-based payments from your Premier League income.
Yeah.
There's some facility fees from the TV companies. And what you're desperately trying to avoid is a situation that they had in Spain for many years, where the so-called top clubs could do their own thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're one of the bottom 14, you're probably better off in a collective bargaining position than if you're one of the top 6, where you might want to sell your own rights.
Yeah.
And I think clubs will be very, very cautious about what they agree to because of the long-term ramifications. You know, could you imagine if Manchester United were allowed to sell TV rights for every game for both domestic and overseas audiences? A club like Burnley wouldn't get 50p. Yeah.
That's it.
You know, and so it would hammer the likes of Burnley. It would hammer the likes of Crystal Palace. And I'm not sure we'd come out of it too well either. So I think a note of caution. Caution.
Just going back to the point you made there, that applies purely to cricket. Yes, you mentioned the Melbourne as an example. That's just a cricket thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I'll look into that. That's some very interesting info. While we're on this, quickly before we wrap up, Rio, what would if you could buy West Ham matches on a pay-per-view system, how much would you be prepared to pay? What do you think's reasonable? Or would you?
Certainly not for home games. I'm there anyway. You know, I'm not going to miss it. I think £20, £15-20 is reasonable.
Okay, good stuff. Breeze, what about you? What would you be prepared to pay for a West Ham match on a pay-per-view system?
I think if it was a season, anything up to 200, 250 quid. If
that's home and away, or just for
home and away? Yeah, I'd want home and away for that.
So about a £5 a game.
Yeah, about that, because again, you can get the various streams and watch football anyway. So I think if you want to attract people in, and they can always raise it in increments following that, but I think initially to get on board, I'd be between 200 and 250. I'd probably ditch the rest of Sky Sports, apart from the Formula One.
I guess that's the concern, isn't it? Pinky, what do you? I mean, we've got a couple of sort of reasonably different suggestions there. Rio says between £15 and £20. Briz, 200 to 250 a season, which is what, £5-6 per game. What do you think? Would you go with either of those? Sit somewhere in the middle, perhaps?
No, I mean, for me, firstly, I'd rather be at the game. But yeah, if for any reason I wasn't travelling or able to attend a home game, my belief is the future model, they should actually be paying supporters to watch. And you know, the technology exists whereby they could be selling advertising on a ticker tape basis, either along the top of the screen or the bottom.
Yeah.
And whilst the game's in play, and you know, effectively the advertisers are paying for the match, and you're just picking up, in your subconscious all the crap that they're trying to sell you. You know, buy some nappies or whatever it may be. But there actually isn't any need for supporters to pay a premium for any of this. I think the TV companies could get a lot more imaginative about how they market the product. I think the Premier League could get a lot more imaginative about what they do. And, you know, why shouldn't the Premier League set up their own broadcasting company with some, you know, red hot marketing agency that says, do you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to do it ourselves. We will sell advertising around the periphery of the screen. And we'll actually let people watch it for nothing, because what we're selling is advertising, and they generate their revenue from that rather than the paying public. And I think if they just got a bit more creative, we wouldn't have to pay anything at all. You know, the game here is getting eyes on screens around the world. That's the name of the game. Yeah. And the cheaper you make it, the more people will watch it.
Sure. And
it's that simple. And if you do it through, you know, you can't get cheaper than free unless you start paying people. And you know, and I only say that in partial jest. Can you imagine? It's Crystal Palace against Brighton and Hove Albion, the big one. It's Sunday afternoon. Why would you watch it? Why would you watch it? You know, if you're in downtown Shanghai, why are you going to watch it? You know, I would want paying to watch that. And that's what I'm saying. They need to get a bit more creative.
Okay, interesting stuff. One thing I did notice, actually, is that I think it was the Brentford game last week, where at certain points in the match, one section of the screen was covered with a great big banner ad for Eva Air. There was the logo constantly in the top right, as you usually see during the game. But as I say, about a fifth of the screen along the bottom was obscured by a big logo for Eva Air for 15 to 20 seconds, perhaps every 10 minutes or whatever. So I guess that's kind of the sort of thing you're talking about, isn't it? Perhaps expanding upon that idea. But some interesting stuff. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm going to call it a day there. We have done a little bit longer than expected. Actually, it's not longer than expected. It's what we absolutely expect to go on for a bit longer than we'd like to. But there you go. We hope that we've kept you entertained with our look at the world of football, the transfer window. We were going to look tonight at best football food, and all the guys there were probably salivating at the prospect of doing that. And unfortunately, we haven't quite got the time. So I'm going to roll that one over to next week. So hold those thoughts, chaps, until next week. We'll come back to your favourite football food in a future episode of the Mod Pod. Just one thing I want to touch on before we go. Of course, do let us know what you think of the show. If there's anything you would like us to discuss, let us know via our email address, which is modpod@kumb.com. That's modpod, MODPOD @kumb.com. Of course, you can always get in touch with us via the KUMB forum. We're always on there regularly. You can contribute to some of the threads or send us a private message if you want to say something to one of us specifically. Finally, KUMB Mastermind. It begins this week. The draw will be made live. I'm just going to do it as one day this week on the KUMB forum for the first round. 32 competitors will be taking part to see who is the ultimate KUMB mastermind, who has that expertise and West Ham knowledge. There's some big names in there. Pinky's favourite, Doc Ball, is taking part. Going to be a contender. Nigel,
he's a winner.
My WHU FC, who is, of course, an authority on all things West Ham historical, is going to be participating. My boys here are going to be flying the flag for KUMB and hopefully doing very well. We shall see how that goes anyway. But that will be launching later this week. The format is going to be just as the TV show Mastermind, 2-minute rounds, a general knowledge round or general West Ham knowledge round, and then each competitor will be asked to choose a specialist West Ham subject of their own. So we shall see how that goes. But that will all commence this week, so keep an eye out on KUMB for that. If, of course, you would like to participate, we do have 2 or 3 spaces still left. So if you want to get involved, get onto the KUMB forum. There is a KUMB mastermind thread there. Drop your name in if you want to be involved. You've got to be quick. You've probably got about 24 hours at most to do that. But that is just about it for tonight's show. So just leaves me to say thank you to the panel, to Bristol Hammer, to Rio, and to the Pink Palermo for joining me this week. We will be back very soon with another KUMB Mod Pod. Before that, we're probably going to be back, as I said, with the KUMB Mastermind show. Until then, anyway, one thing left to say, come on, you Irons.